and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that are read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is empowering athletes to transform pain into peak performance, no other than Mr. Brandon Day.
Hello, thank you, Daniel. Appreciate you. Thanks for being
Welcome to
here.
Book 101, Mr. Brandon. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Absolutely. Again, thanks, Daniel, for having me. I'm a neuro performance coach and a flow state expert that takes athletes from pain and performance plateaus to their peak performance in whatever it is that they do, cognitively, physically, and otherwise. We use applied neurology or neurotraining and the neurobiology of flow states in order to accomplish those goals.
Indeed,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Brandon Day, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to the
Yeah.
world. Have you ever experienced a flow state described in the book, and how did it reshape your understanding of how your own potential?
Great question. Yes. So there is one specific event from my days as a college athlete that really sticks out to me in terms of flow states. And they happen on a spectrum. There's small little micro flow states all the way up to macro, big time flow states, like a mystical experience, right? This experience sits somewhere towards that higher end, which is why it was so impactful and powerful for me. But it happened in a game that was a high stakes game. It was a semifinal game to go to the national championship when I was in college. And the team that we were playing, I felt myself kind of find this zone of performance where my body started to feel very light and airy, and it felt like I could do anything that I wanted to in terms of physical performance. And I became so in tune with what was going on that I started to notice things, almost extra sensory perception, like a sixth sense. And I remember a specific moment where I played defense and we were lining up against the offense, and something clicked in my brain. I didn't actually know why, but I made a leap and I suddenly knew, based on their alignment, based on the motion that the offense was doing, based on all of my hours and hours and hours of film study and practice, I knew what play they were going to run. I don't know how, but I just knew what it was. And so I quickly moved the defensive end in front of me to the spot that he needed to be in. And sure enough, they ran that play. He tackled the guy for a loss. That happened 6 or 7 more times in the second half of that game. So incredible, to the point where I was running and yelling before the play started, getting people lined up. And we won the game. We went to the national championship. We won the national championship. All that was awesome. But after this game, one of their players, their running back, came up to me and he was very angry because he thought that I was somehow cheating. He said, "How did you know the plays that we were going to run? How did you know exactly where I was going to be and the steps that I was going to take?" And I didn't have an answer for him. I said, "I don't know. It just like it was like a gift given to me from the universe that just right before you ran it said they're going to go right here." And so that moment, along with my performance in that game, I felt faster, stronger, better equipped, clearer thinking. Um, that beyond all that, the feeling that I had afterward was awe and wonder. And um, it was many years before I discovered what actually was happening to me, and it was this really heightened, intense macro flow state. This book is what gave me the tools and the knowledge to understand what was happening to me, and even more importantly, how to make that a more consistent and predictable part of my life.
The rise of Superman. What activities in your life could become a gateway to accessing flow and why?
Yeah, great question. The common misconception around flow states is that it's only for athletes, and that is simply not true. And a big part of this book, when you get into it, yes, it's going to talk about some incredible anecdotes from the action and adventure sports world of impossible feats that were just happening over and over, which is kind of the impetus for the author and how he started really diving into what was happening here. But the broader implications is just the examination and the furthering of human potential. Flow states are ubiquitous. Anyone can access them at any time, granted that certain conditions are met. And that's kind of what the book helps you understand, is that sports are a really good avenue into flow states because they are packed full of flow triggers. However, you can take those triggers and you can apply those to anything in your life. So while physical pursuits like exercise and sports specifically that are competitive in nature are very easy access to flow and might be a good way for someone to start, other areas are anything creative in nature, like musicianship, learning a musical instrument or singing or drawing or anything that's creative in the arts. But also, many people find flow in their relationships. The conversations that they have with people close to them can be a very flow-inducing experience. Our jobs, our work can be a very high flow experience if we approach it in the right way and we set up the conditions in the right way. For myself, I find a lot of my flow now in playing music and singing, in exercise and movement-based activities, and in sports, of course, but also in my work with clients, and my productive work as a knowledge worker creating content. It wasn't always that way, but when I learned how to manipulate my environment and the triggers that work for my brain, I'm able to find flow a lot easier in those pursuits. And that even spills over into what the godfather of flow psychology, a guy named Mihai Csikszentmihalyi out of the University of Chicago. He passed away a couple years ago, unfortunately, but he's written many books on the subject and is kind of the pioneer of flow psychology. What he would call maintenance activities of life: doing your laundry, doing your dishes, your personal hygiene. These areas where we're mostly mindless and they're automatic. If we bring our presence back to these activities, and again, we kind of tweak these triggers, we can find flow in those things too. And in that way, flow states can become a very big driver of meaning and fulfillment in our life.
Mr. Brandon, how has this book challenged your assumptions about relationship between rest and peak performance?
Mm. I, like many athletes and high achieving personalities, high performing individuals, I was instilled or maybe conditioned a little bit with the mindset that if you're not grinding, someone is going to surpass you. If you're not working hard all the time, you're going to be left behind. Success goes to the people that push through. Sleep when you're dead. All of these mindsets were instilled in me as an athlete and as an entrepreneur. This book turned all that on its head, and it really showed me the importance of recovery for peak performance. Recovery, and because of this book, not totally, but a big part of contributor to the mindset of recovery as a peak performance activity. It's no longer negotiable. It's no longer passive. It is a active peak performance training activity.
Which scientific insights about flow surprise you most and why?
Yeah, so as a an expert in neuroscience and neurotraining, one thing that was really fascinating to me was the scientific concept of transient hypofrontality. And this was really popularized and well researched by a guy named Arne Dietrich, and his paper on exercise-induced transient hypofrontality kind of set the stage for this. But what it basically means is that there is a short-term shutdown of brain activity in the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe is where a lot of our executive functions take place, including decision-making, inhibition of survival brain activities, and the coordination of the concept of time, and some of our body maps live there. But most importantly, for this context, that is where our self-referential thinking happens, our self-critic, our self-doubt, our second-guessing, all of the things that say, hold on, wait a second, let's think about this. That all goes quiet in a flow state, and it really unlocks the door for what flow is, which is this effortless effort and this seamless flow of action from one action to the next. That only happens when our mind can go quiet and we can act on our instinct, our implicit or procedural memory, the stuff we already know, the stuff we're skilled at. We got to get out of our own way and just let what we know take over. And that can only happen when that frontal lobe actually shuts down. So that concept, it seemed counterintuitive and backwards to me when I first heard it, but then it makes perfect sense if we think about it in the context of, okay, we shut down that part of our brain and we just let what we already know take control and just take over.
Very well said. Mr. Brandon, very well said. Beautifully articulated. Let's talk about the fear, risk, and growth. How does the book reframe fear as a tool rather than an obstacle?
Fear is a powerful motivator. We'll say that. And fear is a really powerful attention getter. One of the most powerful triggers for flow states is risk. When things get riskier, we pay more attention to them. When fear is involved, we get focus for free. And that's really powerful for flow because flow requires undivided attention. And when you're scared of something or when there's a risk involved, you pay all your attention to that thing. So fear can be used as a compass to let us know that we're probably going in the right direction as far as seeking flow. So we can use fear as a tool to help guide us in the right direction in that way.
Indeed. And Mr. Brandon, how might embracing calculated risk help you break through personal or professional plateaus?
The proper risk employed in the right time, in the right context, is a gateway to flow states. And flow states are our optimal state of consciousness where we feel and perform our best. It is our peak performance state. The greatest things we achieve in life happen because of this ability to get into a flow state. And risk being one of the top triggers, it is a really high leverage trigger when employed correctly to get you into flow and to help you grow personally. Just like flow states, personal growth happens right outside of your comfort zone. It's like we have to, again, attention, flow follows focus. We have to get the nervous system and the brain to pay attention to something in order for it to positively adapt. So if you want to become stronger, if you want to grow as a person and become your best version, it's going to require you to get uncomfortable. And there's a little risk in that. The brain is a conservation machine. It doesn't like to expend excess energy. And any change costs energy. The brain gets a little scared of that, doesn't like change. So if we want personal growth, and in the same breath, flow states, we have to get outside of our comfort zone. We have to push a little bit, and that requires a little bit of risk taking, a little bit of courage. But the more we do it, the more courage we develop, because courage and risk taking, overcoming fear, these are muscles that we can train just like our biceps and our legs, right? We can train these things by taking action. So the calculated risk that is just enough to push you outside of your comfort zone a little bit to increase the challenge is what you need. And if done properly, can be a really powerful tool for personal growth and development.
Mr. Brandon, as an entrepreneur, as an athlete, and a father of a triplets, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Long-term goals is that I want to create for myself and my family a high flow lifestyle where we find flow very often in our pursuits, and we are out living an adventurous life filled with all the things that we love to do: traveling, sports, athletics, good relationships, and lots of good work that has a big impact on the world. Long-term. Short-term goals for me at the moment are to provide my growing family with the lifestyle that we want, and to build a business that has a lot of impact and helps people really create these lifestyles themselves. And in that, I own a coaching business where I coach one-on-one for high executive clients and athletes. And I have a really awesome group coaching program that I'm building at the moment that I'm really passionate about.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Brandon, and looking forward for your success. And what
Thank
will
you.
be your advice for those people out there who want to be an entrepreneur, want to be athlete, I want to be coach, and most especially to be a father of a triplet?
I don't know how much I can advise you on being a father of triplets. They're pretty new, and it was kind of an accident, right? But it does kind of play into everything else in my life, and kind of the theme that I think is really helpful for people is to always follow the golden rule of flow, and that is the challenge skills balance. You can take a look at anything in your life, and you can grade yourself and that task on your current skill level to complete it and how challenging it is. Growth and flow sits just above your current skill level. So in anything you do, whether it's washing dishes, playing with your kids, a work project you have, or a sport, if you can find your current skill level and push yourself with a little bit of challenge, you are more likely to find flow in all the things that you do, which means much more enjoyment, pain relief, pleasure, meaning, fulfillment, and purpose in your life.
Wow. Thank you for your advice, Mr. Brandon. Thank you for your advice. So let's talk about the action and application. What one small step will you take to incorporate flow principles into your routine after reading this book?
After reading this book, the one thing that I started to employ, which I do not recommend for everyone, is chasing risk. And so as an action adventure sport athlete and a football player, I intuitively realized that risk was a big trigger for me. And so I started chasing risk in the form of lots of risky sports like skydiving and others. And it did the job. It got me into flow, but the risk became too much and overwhelming. And especially when I started having kids, I needed to dial that back. So that taught me a valuable lesson in that while you may have some triggers for flow that are very powerful for you, you need the awareness of those, and you need to find other ways, especially in the case of risk, to find access. So you have a more well-rounded access points to flow that are synergistic, so that you don't have to chase one thing fully all the time, because that can lead to burnout or injury or, worse things. So being more well-rounded and finding different and varying access points to flow was the underlying lesson that I learned there. So now I have sports, and some involve risk, like mountain biking or skiing or whatever else. But I don't feel like I need to continually push that risk, because I have other access, like my music, like writing, like relationships, and those can fill me up with flow, so that I don't have to chase the risk all the time. And that's very, very important, especially for athletes that find that risk is a big trigger for them.
Yes, indeed. Very well said again, Mr. Brandon. Very well said. Before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and book 101 review in fifth season, comedy 101 in second season, food 101 in its fifth season as well, geography 101 and love letters in third season, and my baby podcast, mental health 101, movie 101 review and music 101 in its fourth season, Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Mr. Brandon, if you could design a flow friendly day from a sunrise to sunset, what would it look like?
Well, that is a great question. Here's what mine would look like. I would wake up early and go straight into my highest leverage work for the day. And I would spend 2 to 3 hours completely involved in flow in that work. And then I would take a recovery break, where I might get some light movement, some exercise, and some time with my kids out in the sunshine. And then I would go back into another work block, where I am teaching and working on highest leverage content. And then after those 2 3 hour work blocks with a break in between, I would take a longer break to eat, refuel, do some neurohygiene or neuro drills to get my brain right and to get my body back in mode. And then I would have a workout with some recovery afterward, maybe a cold plunge before, and then a sauna after the workout. And then I would go into the second half of my day. And in a perfect world, that would involve no more work. I did my 6 hours of flow state work for the day, but then I would go into some action and adventure or sport related activities where I find a deeper flow state. That could also be playing music or something. So that block of 3 hours would be focused on flow in some of my hobbies, leisure activities, or time spent with family. In those sport activities, like we're all being active. And then I would take another short break just as a recovery, maybe do some NSDR for dopamine replenishing, or some light movement and neuro drills. And then I would go into my evening, and that would include more relationships, connections, maybe a dinner with friends and family, and spend that time, couple hours with them. And then I would wind down and get ready for the next day with my evening routine, which also has some neuro drills and flow triggers baked in, to where I'm finding a little bit of flow as we wind down and prepare for the next day.
Mr. Brandon Day, thank you so much for sharing knowledge to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your business itself, your coaching, or any projects that you're doing right now?
Absolutely. Thank you. I have a free community on the platform of Skool, Skool. You can get there if you visit my Instagram profile at I am Brandon Day on Instagram. The links are right there. Please join the free community. There's so many resources in there for neuro training and flow state coaching. And then if it looks good, you can work with me one-on-one or in a group coaching format in another community. But again, all of those resources are free. You can find me on there. We can connect and can help you out in your journey to flow.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Brandon Day, because if you support him, more and more and more empowering business to come, more and more and more empowering coaching to come. So, Mr. Brandon, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Great to be here.
More to come, people. See you soon.